Okay, so you saw this and we went through in detail. Now that was aerobic respiration. So remember, aerobic requires oxygen. The oxygen is because we have that final electron acceptor right here. So this whole process, in order to generate the 32 to 36 ATP, requires oxygen. Now what happens if you're a simple organism or you need ATP really quick? So this is what's going to break us into the next little subset. So it's not going to be too difficult, don't worry. There's only a few slides for this one, so it's a short and sweet one. So now we're going to go into anaerobic respiration. So what happens if no oxygen is available? It might be where your environment they are, but they might have to require energy. Think about the archaebacteria. They're really, really, really hardy and they survive environments that might not have a lot of oxygen. Or maybe you need energy really fast. So you might have to switch to this process of anaerobic respiration. Now another common way to call it is just fermentation. Now the big thing about fermentation is it's not going to be as efficient. Basically fermentation is just going through glycolysis, which was the first big stage. And then what we're going to be doing is taking the pyruvate and converting it into a final product. But the big thing we need to do is we need to get rid of those electrons. So when we picked up electrons in aerobic respiration, we had a place to dump them off in the electron transport chain, but now we don't. So we got to get rid of them. So we have to find a place to drop them off, and then they can NAD plus H will go convert to NAD plus, and they can go back and pick them up. Now there's two different ways that we're going to kind of hit on: lactic acid fermentation and alcohol fermentation. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to go through glycolysis, boom, 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 and in the process we do get 2 ATP, right? So we did generate a little bit of energy, but we're going to take those pyruvate molecules, and depending on if we're going through alcohol or lactic acid fermentation, we're going to make the product of either lactate or ethanol. And then one of them is going to give a product of CO2. So first let's go through lactic acid fermentation. Now this is when no oxygen is available. So a good example is, think about when you go and exercise. Think about all the energy you're putting your muscles through. And if it's especially vigorous, maybe you haven't done it in a while. So what's happening is you're probably asking those cells to do more work than they're used to, and might have depleted their oxygen reserves because it takes a little bit more time to go through aerobic respiration than fermentation. But you're getting low. Your ATP sources are getting low. So what's going to happen is your body's going to shift from aerobic to anaerobic, and it's going to shift to lactic acid fermentation because you probably used up all your oxygen and then you need some ATP quick. So what's going to happen is we're going to take the pyruvate that we generated and the electrons that we have to get rid of, and we're going to convert the pyruvate into lactate. That's the whole part. I'm not going to go through all the chemical part right here, but we're converting the pyruvate into lactate, or lactic acid. And then eventually, when the conversion from pyruvate to lactate is how we get rid of those electrons. So now this can go back and pick up electrons again, and we can repeat the process over and over again. Now, we did get a little bit of ATP, so it's not as efficient, but it's a quick fix. Like I said, this is temporary. Your cells are only going to shift that in an immediate time of need. Now, one thing that is we do have a side effect is we have a buildup of this lactic acid. So when you feel sore, probably about 24 hours later, it's because all this lactate or lactic acid that's produced, that's a buildup in your cell. It's a process and it's like a waste product and your cells had to get rid of it. So that's what makes you feel sore. Now the other type of big fermentation that we think is really important is alcohol fermentation. So this is going to occur in yeast and in some bacteria. So pretty much same thing. We went through glycolysis, but now we need to regenerate and get rid of those electrons and get back to NAD+. So what's going to happen is we're going to take that pyruvate and we're going to convert it into acetaldehyde. In the process of doing that, we're going to release some carbon dioxide. Now, what the next step is to take this acetaldehyde and then convert it into ethanol, which is the alcohol of it. So it's pretty straightforward. You're pretty much going from uric acid to a final product of ethanol. The acetaldehyde is a sub-step in the middle, and you're generating some carbon dioxide also. So this is a quick way. They still generate their 2 ATP, but if you remember bacteria, they don't have mitochondria. So this is their only way that they go through and actually generate ATP. And then I like to put the why should you care? Well, fermentation is super great because there's probably a lot of things that you love that are a result of that. Soy sauce, cheese and yogurt, some of my favorite. Ethanol and CO2, thanks to this, beer. I love going to breweries, and if you go do the tours, I love to talk about this process. And now you know a little bit about fermentation, so it might make a little bit more sense to you. One of my other favorites, wine right here. I'm a big lover of bread too. So I think fermentation's great, got lots of great benefits from the side of it. But just remember to take home, this is a quick process. You don't get as much ATP. The main goal is to get rid of those electrons so we can go back and pick up more. It's quicker, but not as efficient. So here's some link to some videos about respiration and fermentation to help you go through that. So this one's short and sweet. Yeah, wish they were all like that.